Welcome to this episode of the Light Path Podcast, a solo episode this week, because I wanted to really dive deeply into the whole concept of, or my deep reverence for and devotion to ritual. So you would have heard in the first episode of this series, this second series of the Light Path Podcast, and if you didn't, well, here's news for you that this podcast is now brought to you not only by the Light Path Collective, but by the Ritual Emporium. And the Ritual Emporium was this online concept store that I really came up with and started to fall deeply in love with during COVID in 2020. And it's taken me quite a number of years to actually get it up and running and launched now in 2024. Well, quite a few, literally 3 years. But I wanted to spend a little bit of time with you today really talking about how ritual, holding rituals, keeping rituals is really an essential part, not of my spiritual life, but just my life in general. And maybe encourage you to think about the rituals in your life and how that they really can contribute to a deeper, more loving connection with yourself. So technically a ritual is a ceremony that consists of actions performed according to a prescribed order. So that is a definition that if you just Google what is a ritual, that's what it comes up with. And usually rituals are associated with ceremony or religious connotations because these institutions or these ways of conceptualizing spirituality have really, hung their hat on ritualizing that process. But for me, I just see a ritual as an act or a ceremonial act that is a series of steps that are repeated in a very precise manner. And it really comes back to one of my yoga teachers always talks about this saying, and I don't know who to attribute it to. So if you know, chuck it into the show notes or comment on this episode on our social channels to let me know. But she always says, how you do one thing is how you do everything. And in that, she's really trying to encourage us not to consistently strive for the pose, not to be very focused on the end game or the end goal, whatever we perceive that to be, but to know that every process, every step, every movement that we take to get there is just as important. And I've definitely noticed in my life how obsessed I can very easily become with end goals or end games. And it really distracts me from grounding down into the present and really enjoying the essence that achieving the goal or getting to the end game actually is. And I don't think that's necessarily my individual thought. I think that we're programmed like that, or we're definitely conditioned like that. We're conditioned to celebrate the big milestones. I mean, think about weddings as like that celebration of a couple deciding to commit to each other, whereas it's actually all the steps leading up to that are so much more special than just that particular day. The times that, many of us have, say, studied and we're in the process of studying. And I remember every assignment I did, everything I handed in, every exam I sat. For me, it was just like, oh, thank goodness that's done. And it was about getting through rather than being in. And that getting through to getting to that end goal or that destination place can become so addictive. And it filters into everything in our lives. And I noticed I was doing this on a daily basis. I would get up in the morning and just like get to the gym, do some training just to get through so I could start my day. And often, like that whole maybe hour I spent training, I don't remember any of it because I was doing it just to get through it to the next thing. And then I would go to work and I'd look at the jobs of things I had to do that day. And it was a case of ticking them off just to get through it, to get to the end of the day where I wasn't working, rather than really being present and conscious going through it. So if it's not just the big moments we do this and it's the small moments, to me, that was alarm bells. something had to change. And for me, there was definitely a desire to and an essence of obsession around changing, because I wasn't necessarily that fulfilled or that connected to my life as it was. And so that's where my spiritual practice sprung from. It first of all sprung from a ritual of every Wednesday night sitting in the most, I would say, holiest and sacred of meditation circles. And in this circle that, was run by the most, or still is run by the most amazing woman, there were individuals in that circle from all different walks of life. And it was just, to this day, I can't imagine actually there being anything more beautiful than that circle. But it became my Wednesday ritual that I would drive. It would take me over an hour to get there, an hour and a half to get there. I would drive, I would sit in circle, and then drive the hour back home every Wednesday night. And therein, unbeknownst to me, started my obsession, not really obsession, but my preference to and my real deep understanding of the power that ritual held. Because no matter what was happening in my week, knowing that that ritual of a Wednesday night was coming made everything more manageable. I then integrated the ritual of ringing my nana. So it took me an hour and a half to get there. So every Wednesday night, I would ring my nana. And so I just started to increase different practices into ritual. And what I soon found is that if that was easy to maintain, then so many other things were easy to maintain. I definitely, for many years, have had a ritual of moving my body. I really love to get out of bed and go straight to some type of physical activity. And the preference for that and the form of that has absolutely changed over the years, but the timing of it has not. And the reason I had that morning ritual was because I felt I had to get out of bed and give myself something, look after myself first, before I went into my day and was looking after lots of little children and staff and parents. Like, everything else in my day was for somebody else. And that first thing I did in the morning was for me. So ritual is really a simple but a very powerful expression of love for yourself. And dedicating to a ritual is really dedicating that love to yourself so that you can dedicate it to another. And by performing or honoring the rituals in my life, of which I have many, which I'll, scatter in through this discussion, what I'm really doing is I'm really honoring myself. And when I really honor myself, I can then naturally really honor others. But I can also really identify when I'm not being honored and remove myself from those situations. And in a ritual will bring a greater sense of groundedness and sense of self, because really a ritual for yourself is any time that you are consciously dedicating an action, a moment where you are with yourself, repeating actions. It makes you grounded. It cultivates love for yourself beyond anything that you can create on the outside. I love myself, therefore I am. I show up better for myself and others every time, again and again, when I am committed to ritual. So the reason I ritual in many ways is because of that connection I desire to myself. I cannot do or be anything to anyone unless I am in connection to myself. The rituals that I perform bring a great amount of knowledge to myself about myself, and a great amount of love and acceptance. So I have also integrated a different ritual in my mornings now. So when I get up, I don't just chuck on my gym clothes and walk out the door any longer. Now working for myself, I have a little bit more time in the morning, which is so, so nice. So now when I get up, I actually come to my meditation space in my home and I allow myself to sit. I sit sometimes for 5 minutes. I sit sometimes for half an hour, however long I feel I need. And I have a morning meditation ritual. And this is the most beautiful time because I get to check in with, how am I feeling today? What is my energy like today? And allows me also to do one extremely important alignment practice, which I teach in alignment, where it's all about really seeing yourself as the greatest version of yourself walking throughout your day. And so it's so much easier to show up as that version of yourself because you've almost future projected it, or, spiritual teachers or new age teachers will call it timeline jumping. Like, you've called it into existence because you've already pre-planned it. Ask any athlete, they will have memorized the exact way they're going to hit that golf ball, swim that race, throw that football, because it's in their actual brain chemistry and memory. Then when they go to do it, it just feels like natural flow. So that is the ritual I choose to begin each and every day with, by simply sitting with myself so I feel connected, not to my lower self, not to my pains, not to my heartache, but I allow that to be there, whilst also knowing very clearly that I also have a choice. I have a choice to raise my vibration and choose differently. It's always a choice. And by choosing connection to higher self instead of to lower self or ego, then I know my day has a much better chance of being loving and being nourishing and being productive in the way I would like it to be. Even if it's a day where I'm just going to spend time pottering around my home or doing something fun with the people that I love, I still do that every single morning. Every single morning, I also take, as part of my morning ritual, my bushflower essences. So something I will speak more to educate people that are not familiar with bushflower essences or vibrational medicine in that way. Tinctures that really help the energetic body. I take bushflower essences for whatever it is that I feel that I'm working through at that point. In the time of recording this, I'm currently taking the grounded bushflower essences that we do sell at the Ritual Emporium, that I have created to really help to ground me, because I am so ethereal. I sit in energy all the time. I'm really up in my, higher chakras in my body. I feel really comfortable there. I've worked on them so much throughout the years that my groundedness, my being heavy on this earth and really like human in a sense, I'm very human, but in my interactions in my daily life, and not getting so caught up in the spiritual, but also integrating that, like channeling that down into earth, that essence really does help me with that. It helps with a lot of other things. You'll see it at the Ritual Emporium, but that's a definite part of my morning ritual as well. So that connection to self really comes the rituals I have. It's repetitive. It's the same thing every single day. And it allows me to begin my day with that clean slate. And then off I go out the door to do whatever physical movement is calling me that day or within my routine. The other reason I ritual is for empowerment. Empowerment is a key value at the Light Path Collective. It's really about knowledge of self. I really believe that when you know yourself, you know who you are. When you love who you are, when you know your strengths, when you know your blind spots, when you know your weaknesses, when you know where you are at emotionally at any given moment, when you know what your dreams are and where you are heading, you are so empowered. You are so empowered to make very conscious and aligned choices with all of that. And when I have rituals in my life, I feel so empowered, and I have rituals that are extremely empowering to me. So daily, I will cleanse my energy with Palo Santo. I don't necessarily do that at a particular time during the day, but I'm definitely connected enough to myself to get a sense of when I need that. Sometimes it's when I start working. Sometimes it'll be the middle of the day and I just feel like I need to pick me up, and I'm like, I just need to cleanse my energy. So Palo Santo is a big one for me that I usually use on my own personal body. And that empowerment to be able to know my own energy and to clear it instantly with a beautiful ritual tool. And that ritual that takes potentially less than a minute can completely shift my energy. I ritualize clearing my home every day. I often have people in my home due to my work, and so I'm definitely clearing it when they're not here. And maybe less so, it's probably not daily when I'm not having people throughout my home, but cleansing my space with sage. I love to use the sage wands for that, the big one, and just to get around really is like this loving dedication to my home and for the space that holds me. And also that real deep empowerment within myself, because I want to empower my space to be the most cleansed and cleared version of itself so that I can be that within it. Ritual is really also about discipline. Sometimes we just don't want to look after ourselves beautifully. Sometimes we're tired and we've got a lot on our plate. But having a ritual of any sort, it could be a beautiful, empowering morning skincare ritual. Again, I have that. I do the same thing morning and night, not exactly the same thing morning and night, but every day I have a morning skin routine and a night skin routine. And it signifies, getting ready for the day. It signifies taking the day off for me. And the discipline to do that is about showing up. It's about moving through my rituals to become really present, to sit with myself. So that skincare ritual that I have morning and evening is actually just a time with myself to check in with myself, to give myself that minute, sometimes just 2 minutes, 1 minute, 2 minutes, to really honor my physical body and to look after it. And honestly, I think discipline is an act of radical defiance in many ways. In a world where distraction and speed is so idolized, stopping and being really disciplined in the connection with yourself is really radical. It's a defiance that says, I am a part of nature and I bloom slowly, and I desire and deserve the space and time to evolve. It doesn't have to be rushed. I think it's Laos too that says nothing in nature is rushed, yet everything is accomplished. And how much do we buy into the lie that it's quick gratification, that if it takes too long, it's not worth the effort? But I want to give myself the time and the space to evolve at my own pace. And it takes discipline to do that, because it means if I want to evolve slowly and bloom beautifully, I have to be patient. I have to be disciplined in that patience. In fact, I'm so used to ritualizing so much throughout my day that now I am in no rush to become anything other than that I am right now. Discipline, I believe, is the highest form of self-love. And we so often associate discipline with physicality. So like the way in which we move our body or the way in which we eat. And discipline in that way can become like a real punishment, as opposed to what I believe discipline truly is. It's an act of deep self-respect, and rituals have taught me that. So, the biggest part of my ritual life, if you've followed me for a while now, is working with the cycles of the moon. So every new moon and every full moon, I will sit in a ritual to either release at a full moon or set intentions at a new moon. And there's many reasons I do this, and there's a whole episode on why I work with the moon in this podcast, or series 1 of the podcast, that you can refer back to. But I will say this about it, that working with the moon has been the singular, most easy and effective way I've ever aligned or manifested anything in my life, because it allows me the space and grace to connect in with myself. It keeps me accountable, because it's on average 2 weeks that I had that opportunity to stop and check in. It's because I'm working with the current cycles and energy of the universe, so I'm never swimming upstream. And it's because I allow myself time. I don't feel like there's this big rush. I don't intend at a full moon, or at a new moon, and expect it to eventuate in my life the next day. Really, the intention is about who do I intend to be? And none of it is about getting, it's about being. And it's such a beautiful way to ritualize evolving. And evolving never ends, it's never accomplished, and it's consistent. So I know that I have to be consistent. If you're on the Moon membership, you will know this, but I was recently talking to a beautiful podcast host in the States, and I was explaining to their audience of why I'm definitely not anti moon circles. Absolutely not. I have hosted moon circles in the past, but I made the very, very, very conscious decision not to have a moon membership where I would show up live for people at every new and full moon. The moon membership is here is all the knowledge. Here are all the resources that you need. Here is even the guided meditation. You don't even have to think your way through that. And the reason I chose to provide rather than lead is very conscious. And the reason is because you have to be disciplined to show up for yourself. If and when I have hosted moon circles, they're really beautiful because people are coming together, they're connecting, we're experiencing it together, we're learning together, and we're moving through the ritual together, and I'm leading that. But what I find is that is kind of a really easy way to do it. You're not having to create the time for yourself. You're not having to look at the resources and choose what is right for you. But those that do, those that lead themselves through it with all the resources that they need and dedicate that time to themselves are really in that deep essence of love and understanding of the power of ritual. That it's a coming into the connection of self. It's a way to empower themselves. And it is that discipline that it takes to show up for yourself that will serve you over and over and over again. But if I was to just show up and lead that live every month, it's a nice, beautiful experience. But I know it's not as impactful and groundbreaking as it is when we allow ourselves to show up for ourselves in that ritual, that highest form of self-love, which is why I know the moon membership is the most powerful way to be that magnetic self, to align with whatever it is that you want. On the moon membership, we don't even talk about manifesting, or we don't even talk about, intending what it is that you want externally. We always set intentions around who it is that we are promising ourselves to be. It's ultimately about constant evolving. People might call it self-development or improvement. I choose to call it evolving because that is what we're here to do and have the opportunity to be. If nothing changes, nothing changes. And if nothing changes, it gets boring and stagnant really, really quickly. So these are all the reasons why I wanted to bring forth the Ritual Emporium. Really, the Ritual Emporium, just like the Light Path Collective, has my whole entire heart because it is authentically who I am in my day-to-day life. And by showing up on socials through the Light Path Collective, people would reach out and ask me for resources or ritualizing materials. And I thought to myself, why aren't I just providing this? So here we are. This is why the Ritual Emporium, I am so proud to say, is now launched. Something that I dreamt up a few years ago. And I used to get a little frustrated with myself. Like, why haven't I launched this? Why haven't I launched this? It does take a lot of work. So there's that to launch anything. But now that it's the time that it's launched, I understand. I have a deep understanding now of why it took me this long. And it's because we are moving into a time where personal accountability and personal responsibility is something that we must harness for ourselves. And the importance of this is absolutely paramount. You will have heard drips of this in the conversation I had last week with Claire on the podcast about the age of Aquarius, which we're going to talk about more, but it's really about that. I know myself. I know what I value. I know my value. And hence I can be very discerning about how I move through my life, what I choose to consume in all consumption forms, and what I choose to offer in service to others. It is a time where we have to take responsibility for ourselves. So when you incorporate ritual into your day-to-day life, you're sitting in that energy, and it's a really high vibration. If we are vibrational beings, which we are, then we can only really align with things that are on our same vibration. And if we're vibing at a resonance and people are dragging us down, we really feel that, or places or spaces or information, whatever it is dragging us down, we feel that. And it's our rituals that help us come back up here and maintain a vibration that is not only authentic and true to us, but it is at its purest form. We have been in sheep mode for so long. Do and say what the status quo says to do and say. Now, in this age of Aquarius, the individual must search for their identity and meaning in their life in order to contribute to the whole and to be celebrated by the whole, but also in turn to receive contributions from the whole and to celebrate the whole. This is why I shy away from holding those moon circles every month, so that people have that opportunity to curate their own rituals. So on the Ritual Emporium, as it's launched, it is a very limited amount of product and ranges of product to help you with that, but it's just to help get you started. Part of the reason I waited so long was because I was still studying the Australian bushflower essences, which I did finish last year, and I have formulated 4 specific bushflower essences for people to take as part of their morning and evening ritual. That simple dedication to themselves and their energetic body for this beautiful vibrational medicine to help come in and clear their energetic field so that they can be more in connection with themselves. Also at the Ritual Emporium, you will find my cleansing tools of sage, Palo Santo, and selenite. So they're again to help you cleanse your own personal energy or the energy of your space. I can't wait to expand this range. There is obviously so much I want to bring you and offer you, things to help with your body rituals, things, showering is such a great ritual. It's a great time to connect with self and to really care for and really love yourself as well. So there'll be so much more product line to come. If you want to follow along with that, follow us on Instagram at the Ritual Emporium. Subscribe to the newsletter at theritualemporium.com, where I will send out any new products that we're launching, but also lots of cool ritual ideas and information and inspiration and all the things. So the importance of ritual to me is paramount. And to me, I think I could swap out the word ritual for love, because really that's what it is. It's an act, a deep act of self-love to empower me, to soothe me, to heal me, to make me more conscious, and to connect to the truth of who I am. So I'd love to hear about any ritual that you have in your life that you really enjoy, because we can share them through the social channels on the Ritual Emporium to really inspire others. It could be a simple ritual like listening to your favorite song in the car on the way to work to really align you with the energy of that music or those lyrics. It could be something you do when you're brushing your teeth every morning. It could be affirmations in the mirror, whatever it is. I would love to hear about your rituals. So head over to the Ritual Emporium on Instagram and share there. Of course, you can also share on the Light Path Collective. The Ritual Emporium also helps keep this podcast alive. Any money that we make from there goes into this and to fund this and other ways to serve you. So I hope that's given you a little bit of insight or inspiration into how you can use ritual to enhance your life, and most importantly, that relationship that is the most important, the relationship with yourself. So until we speak next time, as always, just sending you so much love as you walk your own path of light.